The grep utility in Ubuntu is one of the most widely used command line tools for regular expression searches. In this video, I'll introduce grep through some common examples, but without turning this into a video about regular expressions. I'll keep the search expression simple and focus on the grep options only. Regular expressions themselves would take an entire video series to explain in depth. Okay, to get started, we're going to cd into my documents directory, and we're going to look at a file called trnt.txt, which stands for The Road Not Taken. So this is Robert Frost's famous poem. Now, I'd like to grep to find the word road. So how often did he use road in his poem, The Road Not Taken? So I specify the search term and the file. So it shows up in two places. But I also know that road is used in the title. But the difference here is R is capital. So this search by default is case sensitive. If we want it to be case insensitive, we specify -I, and it picks up road with uppercase as well. Another thing we'd like to see, or often like to see, is where are these differences? Now I specify the N for number, in this case line number, so it tells me which line numbers in the file that this search term was found. So line 1, 3, and 23, we find the word road. Another thing we might like to see is what comes before or after our search term. So we can use the -A, the number of lines, a search term, in this case grassy, and it shows the two lines that come after our search term is found. So every time it finds our search term, it displays the two lines that come after it. Now if I arrow up and change this A to a capital B, B for before, it displays the two lines before, and C for before and after. So the two lines, the two is after and before our search term is found. So this happens every time that search term is found. In this case, it's only found once, so it only displays the two lines around this grassy term. Now, if I'd like to just get a count of the number of times something is found, the lowercase c. So the uppercase c is to display the lines around it, and the lowercase c is count. So let's count the number of times it finds road. It finds it twice, and in the case insensitive way, we can combine it with I, so IC is the case insensitive count of road, which is 3, which we also saw above. Now, on top of that, I'm going to go back into my home folder. Now, I have a number of other files with portions of the road not taken in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.txts. And if I do grep IC, so the same thing, a case insensitive count, and this time I'm going to put R for recursive. I'll also use road, so this won't just search the files. Now if I use a wildcard like star, it's not just going to grep files for this term in my home directory, but it's going to look in every subdirectory, including the documents folder where the trnt.txt resides. And it will look in other documents as well. So if I run this, it gives me a list of all the files and all of the count of the occurrence of road. So road appears in all these files once. In our poem file that we used up above, 3 times. This was a backup of the file 3 times. This pg2600.txt finds the word road 354 times. This is actually an ebook in text format, so that author does use road a few times. And it looks in a few other files, and in some cases it doesn't find the word at all. And that's to be expected. Now, another thing we use grep for a lot is looking at the processes on our system. So if I do a command ps, say ps-ef, it'll give me a long list of processes, all the processes running on my system. Now, it's quite a long list, and if I wanted to find a particular process, it might be a lot to scroll through. But I can get it immediately. So if I open up, say, a program like Firefox, this will appear in my process list. So ps-ef will return Firefox somewhere in this listing along with its process ID. Now I don't want to have to scroll through it every time, so I can just use this pipe command. So I'm piping the result of ps-ef into grep, and I want to grep for Firefox. And here it finds it. Now it also finds my grep command where I've specified Firefox. But what I want here is this first line, userlib Firefox, so that's the process running, and this is its process ID. So this is a very handy command to run with grep. Another thing I often use grep for, if I can't remember the exact syntax or exact command I wrote, maybe I want to look at my history for all the times I've run apt-get. So I can run the history command, will give my command line history, and I pipe that result into grep and look for instances of apt-get. So here it gives me a complete history of my apt-get commands, things I've installed, times I've run update, upgrade, auto-remove, auto-clean, etc. So that's another quite handy way that grep is used. Another thing that comes up quite often, here let me clear this, is grep minus capital P. Now I'm not going to go into this, but this is for Perl compatible regular expressions. So if you're familiar with using regular expressions in Perl, you can use the same format for regular expressions in grep by giving it the minus capital P option. Now before I leave you, a bit of history about grep. It was created by the famous computer scientist and programmer Ken Thompson, who also co-developed the original Unix operating system, and lately the Go programming language used at Google. And that concludes this introduction to grep.